I'll never forget the words that cut me deeper than any knife could. My son looked me straight in the eye and said, "Stop giving unsolicited advice. You're not a part of our lives." In that moment, something inside me cracked. It wasn't just what he said, it was the finality in his tone, the way his jaw clenched like he'd rehearsed this moment 100 times, the way his wife stood silently behind him, almost as if she agreed. My name is Ethan Cole. I'm 56 years old, and for most of my life, the one thing I thought I couldn't lose was my son Landon. He wasn't just my only child, he was my legacy, my best friend, my reason for waking up in the morning. I had raised him almost single-handedly after his mother, Marianne, and I divorced. I thought that bond would never break. I was wrong. That day, when Landon turned his back on me, I made a decision I never imagined I'd have to make. I erased him from my life. His name came off everything. My will, my emergency contacts, even the framed photos that once lined my hallway. One by one, I packed them away in boxes until my home looked like it belonged to a man who never had a son. I thought I was protecting myself from pain. I thought I was teaching him a lesson. But all I was really doing was preparing for a future I never wanted, a future without him. A year later, there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, Landon was standing there, his eyes red and swollen, tears running down his face. He was broken, desperate, begging me for help. But by then, I had nothing left to give. Before I take you through everything that led to that moment, let me start at the beginning. Because this story isn't just about a father and son. It's about pride, pain, and the walls we build when love feels too heavy to carry. When my son told me I wasn't part of his life, I thought the worst day of my life had already passed. I didn't realize the true heartbreak was yet to come. And just those first words from Landon, "You're not a part of our lives." Years of love, sacrifice, and memories flashed through me like a film reel. Teaching him how to ride his first bike, his little hands gripping the handlebars while I steadied the seat. His graduation, when he looked out into the crowd and found me first, beaming with pride. Late nights at the kitchen table, helping him with math homework while he groaned about how boring it was. All of it felt erased in one sentence. That's why I acted the way I did. Some people might call it extreme. Some might even say it was cruel. But when the person you've lived for tells you that you're no longer needed, you either fight harder or you shut down. And I shut down. I want you to hear this story, not because it makes me look good, but because it might make you stop and think about your own family. Because pride has a way of creeping into our relationships and convincing us we're protecting ourselves, when, really, we're destroying the very thing we're trying to hold on to. So, stay with me. I'm going to tell you how I went from a father who would have given his last breath for his son, to a man who, when his son finally came back crying, had nothing left inside to give. This is my story, and maybe it'll keep you from making the same mistake. My name is Ethan Cole, and if you'd asked me a few years ago what defined me, I would have answered with one word: father. Not my career, not my hobbies, not even the short-lived marriage I once had. Just father. Raising my son, Landon, wasn't just something I did. It was the core of who I was. I grew up without a strong father figure myself. My own dad, a truck driver named Hank, was on the road more than he was home. When he did show up, he was strict, gruff, and hard to please. I swore that if I ever had a child, I'd be the opposite. I'd be present. I'd be patient. I'd be the kind of father every kid dreams of having. When Landon was born, that promise became my mission. Even after my marriage with Marianne fell apart, I poured everything I had into him. While other men my age were dating again, chasing careers, or traveling, I was the dad at every school play, every soccer game, every late-night ER trip when he caught the flu. And I was proud of that. But here's the thing about pouring everything into one person. When they start pulling away, you don't just feel distance. You feel like you're losing your purpose. When Landon hit his late 20s, things started to shift. He got married to a woman named Claire, who was kind and polite, but I always sensed a barrier between us. It wasn't that she disliked me. It was more subtle than that. She encouraged Landon to stand on his own, to make his own choices, and to separate his new life from the shadow of his old one, from me. At first, I didn't think much of it. I told myself it was normal. Kids grow up, they build families, and parents have to learn to let go. But then came the silences, the unanswered phone calls, the short text replies, the holidays where suddenly Landon and Claire had other plans. I'd sit in my quiet house, staring at the framed photos of us fishing at Lake Monroe, or the shot of him holding his first car keys with that proud, crooked grin, and I'd wonder where I went wrong. Maybe I should explain the house a little, because it says a lot about who I am. It's nothing fancy. A single-story ranch with peeling paint on the back deck and a garage that smells faintly of motor oil and cedar. The living room is lined with shelves of books, mostly history and old adventure novels. On the mantel, I kept picture after picture of Landon growing up. His gap-toothed smile in kindergarten, the high school graduation cap that sat too big on his head, the college diploma I helped him frame. Every corner of that house whispered his name. To me, home wasn't just a place. It was a museum of my son's life. So when he started pulling away, I reacted the only way I knew how. I tried harder. I offered advice. A lot of advice, too much advice. When he mentioned buying a new house, I warned him about the risks of debt. When he and Claire talked about starting a family, I told him to wait until they were more stable. When he switched jobs, I cautioned him about chasing money over loyalty. I thought I was helping. I thought I was protecting him the way I always had. But to him, it must have felt suffocating. To him, it must have felt like I didn't believe he could handle life without me holding his hand. The truth? I didn't know how to stop. See, when you spend almost 3 decades being someone's safety net, stepping back feels like abandoning them. And for me, it wasn't just about advice. It was about relevance. Every word I gave him was proof that I still mattered, that I still had a role in his life. But from Landon's point of view, I was just an echo of his childhood, refusing to let him grow into his own man. I'll admit something I rarely say out loud. I was lonely. The house felt emptier with each passing year. Marianne had remarried and moved on. My brother Daniel checked in every once in a while, but he had his own kids and grandkids to worry about. For me, family meant Landon, and only Landon. So, when he started slipping away, I clung harder, and the harder I clung, the more he pulled back. I didn't see it then, but looking back now, it was like watching 2 magnets flip polarities. The more force I applied, the faster he retreated, and it was only a matter of time before the tension snapped. That's when we reached the breaking point, the day he told me to stop giving advice. The day he told me I wasn't part of his life anymore. But before we get there, I need you to understand. I wasn't trying to control him. I was trying to hold on to the only thing that gave my life meaning. And when you cling to something too tightly, sometimes you crush it without realizing. That was my mistake, and it cost me more than I ever thought it would. The breaking point didn't happen overnight. It built slowly, like water pressing against a dam, and every conversation, every disagreement added more weight until the day it all collapsed. It started with the little things. I'd call Landon to check in, and he'd rush me off the phone. "Hey, Dad, can't talk now. Work's crazy." Or, "We'll visit soon, I promise. Just not this weekend." At first, I told myself he was just busy, newly married, climbing the corporate ladder, trying to find his footing. But the excuses piled up. Weeks turned into months, and every time I tried to squeeze my way back in, it felt like he pushed me further out. One evening, I drove over to his house unannounced. He wasn't thrilled to see me, but he let me in. Claire was in the kitchen, polite but quiet, while Landon sat across from me at the dining table. "Dad," he said, rubbing his temples, "you can't just show up like this." "I was in the neighborhood," I lied. "Besides, I wanted to see how you were doing." "We're fine," he said curtly. But I couldn't leave it at that. I noticed a pile of paperwork on the counter. Mortgage applications. My chest tightened. "Are you two buying a house?" I asked. "Yeah," he said cautiously. "That's a mistake," I blurted out before I could stop myself. "The market's insane right now. You'll bury yourselves in debt." Landon's eyes hardened. "Dad, we know what we're doing." "No, you don't," I snapped back. "I've seen families ruin themselves chasing some white picket fence dream. You should wait, save more, think long term." Claire shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my gaze. Landon leaned forward, voice shaking with anger. "Why do you always have to do this? Why can't you just be happy for me?" The words stung, but I brushed them off, pretending I was just being honest. But deep down, I knew he was right. I wasn't celebrating his independence. I was clinging to my role as protector. The arguments became more frequent after that. Whenever we talked, it turned into me offering advice he didn't ask for, about his career, his finances, even his marriage. And each time the tension grew thicker. The final straw came on a Sunday afternoon. I'd called him 3 times that week with no answer, so I tried again. This time, he picked up, but his tone was icy. "What is it, Dad?" "I just wanted to check in," I said. "You've called me 4 times in 7 days. What more is there to check in about?" My voice rose before I could stop it. "I'm your father, Landon. That's my job. You may think you know it all, but you don't." There was silence on the other end. Then his words came, sharp and final. "Stop giving unsolicited advice. You're not a part of our lives." I froze. I thought I'd misheard. "What?" I whispered. "You heard me," he said firmly. "You're not part of our lives anymore. Claire and I, we need space. We need to build our family without you hovering over every decision." My mouth went dry. "So that's it?" I asked, voice cracking. "That's it," he said. And then he hung up. I sat there with the phone pressed to my ear, the line dead, my living room eerily quiet except for the ticking of the clock on the wall. My chest felt hollow, like someone had reached in and scooped everything out. That night, I walked through the house and stared at every reminder of him. The framed pictures, the fishing rod he'd left in the garage, the old trophies collecting dust on the shelves. And for the first time, those things didn't bring me joy. They mocked me. They reminded me that no matter how much I had given, it wasn't enough to keep him close. So I did something drastic. Some people would call it petty, but at the time it felt like the only way to survive. I erased him. I called my lawyer and removed his name from my will. I updated my insurance policies and changed my emergency contacts. I took down his pictures, packed away his childhood belongings into boxes, and shoved them into the attic. I deleted his number from my speed dial, though I couldn't bring myself to erase it completely. I told myself this was strength, that if he didn't want me in his life, then I wouldn't force myself in. But late at night, lying in bed, I'd stare at the ceiling and wonder if I'd just made the biggest mistake of my life. The truth? I didn't cut him out because I stopped loving him. I cut him out because I loved him so much that hearing I wasn't needed anymore was unbearable. And so, in my pain, I built a wall. One so high that when he finally came back a year later, crying, I realized I couldn't climb it anymore. After that last phone call, the one where Landon told me I wasn't part of his life anymore, something inside me hardened. I sat in my living room that night with the lamp casting a dull glow over the family photos that still hung on the walls. My hand trembled as I pulled one down, then another, until the shelves and mantel were bare. I packed them into boxes and carried them to the attic. With each photo I stored away, I told myself I was protecting my heart. If he didn't want me in his life, then I wouldn't keep pretending I was still part of his story. The next day, I made it official. I called my lawyer, signed papers, and had his name removed from my will and insurance. I updated my medical file to list my brother Daniel as my emergency contact instead of my son. On the surface, it felt like control, like I was taking charge of the pain instead of letting it consume me. But underneath I was hollow. For a while, I tried to fill the void. I joined a small men's group at my church, helping organize food drives. I started fishing again with Daniel, something we hadn't done in years. He'd sit across from me in the boat, casting his line into the water, occasionally glancing at me as if he wanted to say something but never did. Daniel had always been the quiet type. Instead of advice, he offered presents, which was probably what I needed most. Still, the silence in my house weighed on me. Every time I opened a drawer and found one of Landon's old report cards or stumbled on his baseball glove, a sharp ache cut through me. I wanted to call him. I wanted to check in to hear his voice. But my pride kept me frozen. I'm not part of his life, I reminded myself whenever the urge rose. He made that choice. Months turned into seasons. Fall leaves scattered across the lawn, then winter snow piled on the roof. Each holiday was another reminder of what I'd lost. Thanksgiving was spent at Daniel's house, watching his grandchildren laugh and chase each other. Christmas was quieter, just me and a frozen dinner in front of the TV. I tried to smile when neighbors waved, but the truth was, I had stopped living. What I didn't realize then was that pride doesn't protect you, it just builds a cage around you. And I had locked myself inside. One year after the fallout, on a rainy Saturday evening, I heard a knock on my door. It startled me. I wasn't expecting anyone. Daniel usually called before stopping by, and I rarely had visitors. When I opened the door, I froze. There he was. Landon stood on my porch, drenched from the rain, his shoulders slumped, his face pale. His eyes were red and swollen, tears cutting lines down his cheeks. He looked nothing like the confident, headstrong man who had pushed me away. He looked like the little boy I used to tuck into bed after nightmares. "Dad," his voice cracked. "I'm sorry, I don't know what else to do." My chest tightened, 1,000 emotions colliding at once: relief, anger, love, confusion. For a year, I had dreamed of this moment, imagined him coming back and admitting he needed me, and yet, now that it was happening, I felt frozen. "What happened?" I asked cautiously. He swallowed hard, his voice trembling. "Claire." She left me, took the baby, and went back to her parents. "I don't know how to fix it. I don't even know who I am anymore. Please, I need you." Hearing those words should have ignited the father in me, the protector, the guide, the man who once lived to keep him safe. But instead, I felt something I never expected: emptiness. For a year, I had practiced not needing him. For a year, I had built walls around my heart so the hurt wouldn't crush me. And now, standing in front of him, begging for my help, I realized I had nothing left inside to offer. I wanted to reach for him. I wanted to say, "It's okay, son. We'll figure this out." But the words wouldn't come. My hands stayed at my sides. My mouth stayed dry. All I could do was stand there, watching him cry on my porch, wondering if the damage we had done to each other was too deep to ever heal. And in that silence, with the rain pouring around us, I knew the story wasn't over. The real heartbreak, the true climax of this journey, was still to come. The rain pounded against the porch roof as my son stood before me, his chest heaving, his tears mixing with the water dripping down his face. For a moment, I just stared at him, frozen in the doorway. It was everything I had wanted for the past year. Landon back at my doorstep, needing me. But instead of joy, I felt something else rising inside me. A numbness. A wall. "Dad," he whispered, his voice cracking. "I'm sorry. I should never have said those things to you. I was stupid. I pushed you away. But now, I don't know what to do." I swallowed hard, my throat tight. "What happened, Landon?" He pressed his hands to his face and let out a shaky breath. "Claire left me. She said I was too cold, too stubborn, too much like you." He let out a bitter laugh, then shook his head. "She took our baby to her parents. I tried calling, begging her to come home, but she won't answer. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know how to be a husband, a father. I don't even know who I am without her. I need help. I need you." The words should have ignited something in me. For decades I had been his anchor, the one he leaned on when the world was too heavy. But as he stood there broken, my chest didn't fill with the fierce, fatherly instinct I expected. Instead, I felt the sharp edge of emptiness. A year of silence. A year of replaying his rejection in my head. A year of convincing myself he didn't want me, and that I didn't need him. In that time, I had trained my heart to stop aching, to stop hoping. And now, when he finally reached for me again, I realized I had buried that part of myself too deep. I wanted to step forward, to wrap my arms around him, to say, "It's okay, son, I've got you." But the words got stuck in my throat. Instead, what came out was quiet, cold. "Son, I don't have anything left to give you." His head jerked up, eyes wide with disbelief. "What? No, Dad, don't say that, please." "I mean it," I said, my voice shaking. "I tried for years to be there, to guide you, to love you the only way I knew how. You told me I wasn't part of your life. So I learned to stop being part of it, and now—" I gestured weakly toward him. "Now I don't know how to go back." Landon stepped closer, desperation in his eyes. "Dad, I was wrong. I didn't mean it. I was angry. I felt smothered. I lashed out. But I need you now. Please, you're all I have." I felt my knees weaken as memories flooded back. Teaching him to ride a bike, his hand clutching mine on the first day of kindergarten, his teenage voice cracking as he asked me for advice about his first crush. The boy, who had once needed me so completely, was now a man, begging for that same comfort. And yet, I stood still. "Do you know what it did to me when you said those words?" I asked, my voice trembling. "When you told me I wasn't part of your life? I lived in silence for a year. Do you know what silence does to a man like me, Landon? It kills him slowly." His face crumpled, tears spilling freely. "I know, Dad, and I hate myself for it. Please don't let this be the end, please." The rain kept falling, the thunder rumbling in the distance, as if the sky itself echoed the storm raging between us. Part of me screamed to close the gap, to hold him, to tell him forgiveness was still possible. But another part, the part that had been wounded too deeply, whispered that it was too late, that I had nothing left inside to give. I whispered again, barely audible, "I'm empty, son." "I'm so sorry." Landon's shoulders collapsed. He covered his face with his hands, sobbing uncontrollably. The sound ripped through me, but I didn't move. I just stood there, rooted in the doorway, my body trembling with the weight of everything left unsaid. For the first time in his life, I didn't have an answer. For the first time, I let him cry without reaching out to steady him. And in that moment, I realized the cruel truth. Sometimes love doesn't die because it disappears. It dies because pride and pain choke it until there's nothing left. That was the climax of our story. Not a reconciliation, not a healing embrace, but two broken men standing in the rain, too wounded to save each other. When Landon left that night, the rain still coming down in sheets, I stood in the doorway long after he disappeared into the dark. My clothes were damp, my chest hollow. The echo of his sobs lingered in my ears. For a long time I couldn't move. I just stood there, staring into the storm, realizing I had just lived through one of the most painful moments of my life. I wish I could tell you that I ran after him, that I wrapped him in my arms and promised we'd figure it out together. That's what good fathers are supposed to do, right? But I didn't. My pride, my stubborn, wounded pride, kept me planted in that doorway. In the days that followed, silence returned to my house. But this time, it wasn't the bitter silence of rejection. It was heavier. It was the silence of regret. Every corner of my home seemed to accuse me. The empty mantel where his photos once stood. The boxes in the attic filled with the life of a boy who had once trusted me completely. Even the fishing rod leaning against the garage wall felt like a monument to a bond I had let crumble. I told myself I'd done what I had to do, that I had no more strength left to give. But at night, when I closed my eyes, I saw his face on the porch, streaked with rain and tears, begging me to help him, and my chest would tighten until sleep finally dragged me under. Pride is a strange thing. It convinces you that walking away is strength, that silence is dignity, but in the end, all pride really leaves you with is loneliness. Looking back, I realized that cutting Landon out wasn't about teaching him a lesson. It was about protecting myself from pain I didn't want to face. I thought removing his name from my life would make me stronger. Instead, it hollowed me out. So when he finally came back, I didn't have anything left to offer him. And that's the lesson I need to share with you. If there's someone in your life you love, your son, your daughter, your parents, your sibling, your best friend, don't let pride dictate your choices. Don't wait until anger cools or wounds heal on their own. Because sometimes, by the time the door swings open again, you've already built walls too high to climb back over. Love isn't about being right. It isn't about control. It isn't about protecting your ego. Love is about showing up, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. I lost precious time with my son because I was too proud to admit I needed him as much as he needed me, and when he finally reached out, I couldn't give him what he was asking for. Not because I didn't love him, but because I had let that love wither in silence. So, if you're listening to this and you've got someone in your life you're at odds with, don't wait. Call them. Apologize if you need to. Forgive if you can. Don't assume there will always be another chance, because one day you might find yourself standing where I was, empty, hollow, with nothing left to give. That's my story. It isn't neat, it isn't pretty, it's raw and it's painful, but maybe, just maybe, my mistake can be the thing that stops you from making yours. Pause, softer tone to transition into outro. If this story hit you in the heart, if it made you think about someone you've pushed away or someone you've lost, do me a favor. Share this video with them or with anyone you think might need to hear it. Leave a comment below and tell me what you would have done if you were in my shoes, or share a story of your own. You never know who your words might help. And if you want to hear more real, raw stories like this, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Every time you engage, it helps these stories reach more people who need them. Life is too short to let silence and pride win. Don't wait until it's too late. Thank you for listening to mine.